It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning on our countdown to Christmas. We have been covering, of course, all corners of the Australian market for you in 2025. Over 1,500 property episodes now to keep you updated on what is happening in your local market, your local area, your local street almost. It is a Thursday, December the 18th. Brisbane's property squeeze is not only being felt, but also being represented in some of these prices at the moment being paid. Low supply and relentless demand have pushed prices up in Brisbane. One of the areas too to sort of look at are these downsizes in Brisbane. They're selling up and they're looking for smaller properties and pocketing a decent amount of residual as well in the bank. Even one-bedroom apartments are now cracking the $1 million mark. A one-bedder, just as an example, in Parkland Boulevard, that sold recently for $1.1 million. And it wasn't that long ago that similar units were selling for $650,000. So let's take you to Brisbane right now and catch up with Asti Mardiasmo. She is the Chief Economist for PRD. Good morning to you, Asti. Welcome into the Real Estate Breakfast. It's been a while since we've had a chat. You would know that only too well when it comes to the Brisbane property market.
Good morning. Definitely has been a while, and congratulations on all the so many great episodes that you've been doing, Craig. But yet definitely the Brisbane property market is one of the hottest markets across the country right now. You're definitely correct in saying that the unit market has taken off and is kind of like a jet. House prices is still high, but unit price growth is definitely higher than house price growth right now across Brisbane.
And I guess what is fueling that top end of the market when it comes to the unit and that example of 1.1 million, if you go to the lower market, the lower range in the units, of course, you've got that 5% guarantee scheme. Everybody is jumping into the units. And how many times have we talked about, houses are always, from an investment point of view, so much greater than units, but that curve is starting to get a little straighter now because of people in that unit market chasing those properties.
It definitely has. The main reason for this is pretty much, to be honest with you, the lack of available houses. And what I mean by that, you've just spoken about how downsizers are looking for, smaller properties and they're going into units. So what we're seeing in Brisbane is, because we don't have enough houses for everyone, whether you're a downsizer going from, say, a 4 or 5 bedroom house and wanting something that's like 2 to 3 bedrooms, or you're a newcomer to the market, there isn't enough house stock. And when there isn't enough house stock, what happens is that house buyers that has the budget for a house then starts to look into the unit market. And they then bring that house budget, they bring that profit that they've made from selling their big houses into the unit market. And that increases the unit price even more so than what we've expected.
Yeah, so those downsizes, they are definitely fueling the top end of the unit range. Since we're talking about top end, we should mention Byron Bay because it is flirting at the moment with that $3 million club range. What do you think of Byron Bay prices? Do you feel that there is too much hype around this location for the price? It seems that whenever Byron Bay is mentioned, the Hemsworth brothers are talked about in the same breath. Is this just adding to the hype? The brothers, of course, they're doing very nicely from the rising Byron prices. And it's like anything, lots of Instagram, social media posts, plenty of attention. That is going to help fuel perhaps a false real estate pricing for the market. Do you see that this is just justified with the prices? What do you think? You can leave us a voice message. We would love to hear your thoughts, or you can email us, myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Asti, over to you. This market starting to really heat up again.
You know what? Byron Bay has always been a very interesting market, because if we look at the trends in Byron Bay in the dips and like when it goes up, it's a little bit seasonal in the way that it's very different to Brisbane, that has that constant growth over time, where we can definitely see, if we look at it from a graphical perspective, we can see the curve going up and up in a steady sort of pace. Whereas Byron Bay, it's almost like a roller coaster where you've got like, you know, the up and then the down and then the up and then the down. And a lot of it does coincide with how much Byron Bay is getting attention. If you remember, Craig, the very first time that Byron Bay kind of exploded in terms of pricing is when we did have quite a lot of Hollywood actors floating around the area. We had that Netflix series. I don't know if you know of it, or I actually watched it. I'm going to confess that I actually did watch it, called Byron Bays, like BAE. It wasn't just the Hemsworth brothers. I think even Zac Efron was going there. You know, there was quite a lot of other Hollywood actors that was going there. And then it became a hype, and, you know, there was a Netflix series, there was a lot of Instagram about it, all of that kind of thing. I don't think that it's exclusive to Byron Bay. We've seen that happen to other parts of Australia and even other parts of cities and kind of like coastal places around the world. Social media does definitely play a large issue in this. The stock in Byron Bay itself is very, very low. We don't see a lot of new houses, new units being created in Byron Bay. And so it's seasonal in the sense that when it's popular, we do see a big, massive spike in demand. And because it's seasonal, developers and even the council can't rely on that demand always being there. And so they're also quite cautious about then building new products in Byron Bay. So when the demand does spike up, then the supply never catches up. It's never there. And so that's why we see these massive spikes in Byron Bay.
Yeah, and just in terms of the median house price in Byron Bay, that is sitting there at $2.44 million. Values jumped actually 13% in the last quarter alone, one of the fastest growth rates in the country. It has to be said that after cooling through 2022 and 2023 as rates rose, 2025 has marked that very sharp turnaround.
Eager to expand your property expertise? Enhance your real estate know-how with us.
And right now it is time for another property tip. Recently we were talking to Archie there in Melbourne, and good morning to you, Archie. You've got a property tip for everybody this morning.
I do. We've been asked a few times by vendors if we're able to sell their property off market because other agents are saying that they would. My recommendation to any vendor would be, while the market is so hot, why would you deal exclusively with buyers off market? I mean, there's a reason why buyers and buyers agents love off market opportunities, because they're able to deal with you exclusively. But when you've got plenty of buyers out there looking for property, I don't know why you wouldn't put your property on the market and allow every buyer out there to see it and to bid on your property.
Decode the property market with insider knowledge and insights to better navigate your real estate journey.
Well, let's this morning go from some of these really expensive price points that we're talking about, Asti, to perhaps a lower price point. And I'm going to bring to your attention, owning land in Sydney for under $400,000 usually sounds impossible. But there is this listing that proves that it can be achieved. We're talking about a block in the Blue Mountains that has hit the market with a $389,000 price guide, but it is essentially a neighbour's driveway measuring just 113 square metres. Little bit alternative, but it does get you a slice of property.
It is definitely alternative. I would say this is not a normal listing. It's not definitely a listing that we will see, repeated over and over again and being available. Although, you never know. There might be other people that is inspired to do the same thing and sell parts of their driveway. But it's definitely not something that we would see as a norm in the real estate world. And you also have to remember that when it comes to Blue Mountains, it is quite a long way from Sydney, in the sense that we're not talking about CBD Sydney. We are talking Blue Mountains is a good 2-3 hours by car, and you have to kind of go up the mountains and things like that. But it definitely is the type of listing that can get someone who is willing to be part of the driveway, I suppose, and comfortable to live in a small block of land. I mean, I think you can definitely build. So if that is something that is for you, it does mean that you will have to look at quite an expensive cost because you will be building the house itself. Then that's one way that you can get into the market. But it's definitely not an everyday listing.
That is for sure, and despite the size, the owner has checked with the council, a town planner and architect, so the home can be built. It's not going to be a mansion, as you're saying. I think if you think tiny home living, but it is technically a buildable block. All right, well, great to catch up with you this morning. Asti, we are getting very, very close to Christmas. What are you doing? Are you getting a bit of a break, some downtime?
Well, interestingly enough, I've just come home from London. So I came home a couple of days ago. That was my Christmas break. And I have to say, Christmas in Europe during the cold and winter times is very, very different to Christmas here in Brisbane and in Australia in general.
You went to London. Was that the only destination?
No, so I went to London. I went to Birmingham. I actually grew up in Birmingham. That's where I spent my teenage years. And then went up to Edinburgh, to Scotland, because we have family there. And it's my very first time to Edinburgh as an adult. I remember it as a child. The property market in both of these places have quite a lot of similarities to ours in terms of unaffordability or affordability, whichever way you'd like to put it. And that, you're getting smaller box. Most people are going into units. The type of houses is different, but in terms of price growth and in terms of trends, they're seeing pretty much the same trends as what Australia is seeing.
Yeah, we're not alone as far as those trends, those upward market trends on property. Well, have yourself a fantastic Christmas, Asti, and look forward to your company as we get into, not that far away now, 2026.
Yeah, only a couple of weeks until 2026, so we'll have to see what the property market is doing then.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week. Let's explore together the power of real estate.
This cut shows that there's an increasing level of competitiveness between the lenders to try and grab that kind of borrower attention, because there's not a lot happening with interest rates. So we're seeing that Westpac cut. We're also seeing more incentives being offered on top of home loans, as well as just the interest rate.
And we want to touch on the potential house price forecast. This is into 2026, Graham.
It is indeed, Craig. We have the combined forecast from Westpac and ANZ at the moment. For 2026, it's interesting, we're seeing pretty house price forecasts that are larger than in 2025. So for Sydney, for example, we're seeing about 5% across the two banks, whereas they're kind of saying 7% for 2026. For Melbourne, we're seeing it go from 4 to quite a large 7% as well. So nearly double the forecast in Melbourne next year compared to this year. Also up in Perth and in Adelaide, not so much in Hobart and Brisbane for some reason, but generally pretty positive house price predictions from the big two banks for next year.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.